Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am joined today by three lovely gentlemen. Mr. Stubergier is back.
Most lovely.
Conveniently was sick last night for our media meltdown special.
I just love the media too much. I didn't want to participate in criticizing them.
I'm admiring how healthy you look today.
Thank you.
I know. And then, of course, Mr. Chad Prather and Jason Buttrell, chief researcher here at Blaze TV. So, Stu, what was the top story for you?
Well, the only place it's cold that's colder than Minnesota right now is in the studio. But I figure since it's so cold in so much of the country, it's a great time to talk about global warming, which is what's causing it.
But you just said it's cold.
Yeah, it's global warming.
Okay. All right, Chad.
And things are, of course, heating up still on the abortion debate. Apparently, the governor of Virginia believes it's okay to actually murder a baby.
All right, a lot to digest in that one, Jason.
So you guys kind of brought this up yesterday, and so I heard a little bit about that, but it's about the Kamala Harris's town hall for CNN. And I had one of my epic rants just started formulating. I was like, I cannot wait for today's show. I'm going to add to it, and I'm going to do it.
I love that you act like one of your rants is unusual. Like, it just so happens that I had a rant today, as if that doesn't happen every other day of the week.
True.
All right, a lot to get into. Before we do that, I want to thank our sponsor, American Financing. You have worked with them a lot longer than I have. However, I will say when I heard about them, the best thing that I heard out of that right off the bat was that they are not commission-based.
Yeah, they're salary-based. So they don't actually care about selling a particular loan or getting a kickback from any of the banks or anything. In fact, look, I dealt with them for a few months when I was buying my house, and what they seem to care about is actually just you getting the best deal that's right for you. I went in with kind of an odd request I basically wanted to buy a house as if it was like 2006 before the crash, because I liked the zero down. I liked it. I thought that was fun. Apparently, this country didn't. But I went in with a kind of a odd sort of request, and it wasn't really something that they did, and they kind of thought that no one would do it. But I did find one bank that was willing to do it for me, and I went back to them because they had given me a lot of good information. I really trusted their judgment. And I went back to them and I said, look, this one bank is giving me this. I mean, what do you think? What's the best deal? And they said, well, honestly, like if you can find that deal from them, I would just take it. And I was like, wow, they didn't have to do that for me or anybody else. I mean, the idea, they just wanted to make sure that you're getting the right deal. And they took care of me as a customer, walked me through all the options, even helped walk me through the loan for the other place, which was well above and beyond what they needed to do. And if you want a sane mortgage, as Glenn would tell me, they're great to go with, and they really have this sort of long-term experience, and they were the ones that were able to survive the storm of 2008. They weren't affected by it because they were making smart loans the whole time. Yeah.
So if you are looking to get loan, mortgage, whatever, you can go to AmericanFinancing.net or call 800-906-2440. So if you don't mind, I'd like to get the heavier topic out of the way first, and then we can go back to, not that global warming is not super heavy.
It's fine. It's the Earth coming to the end, but whatever. No big deal.
We have 12 years.
Okay,
We do.
Plenty of time.
There's time.
But I do want to get to what the Virginia governor has said about this new bill, the abortion bill that's being proposed. Right now.
We're living in a day and age where someone says, here's my idiocy, and another person says, hold my beer, I'm going to one up your idiocy. And that's what we have with this recent radio interview with the governor of Virginia. I mean, I want people to hear this, because if I say it, people will say no one in their right mind would honestly utter those words.
Yeah. So, and really quickly, just to set it up, this bill that's being proposed, it is similar to the bill that was just passed in New York.
Yeah, New York,
that accurate?
Vermont, a couple of other places are trying to pass the same thing. It's a new rite of passage to be a Democrat, which is abortion up until the last second before birth.
Right. So here is what the Virginia governor had to say when he was asked to kind of clarify what this bill would allow. Watch.
When we talk about third trimester abortions, these are done with the consent of obviously the mother, with the consent of the physicians, more than one physician, by the way. And it's done in cases where there may be severe deformities, there may be a fetus that's non-viable. So in this particular example, if a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mothers.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is what evil looks like. That's what evil sounds like. So let me interpret what he just said. First of all, he said if a baby was non-viable. Okay, that's a dead baby. That's a different. Let's categorize that. That's over here. Okay, we're talking about a non-living baby. What he talked about was delivering a baby. Okay, maybe they're a baby that needs to be resuscitated. That happens. But if the baby's resuscitated or if the baby is viable and living, comfort the baby. Everybody leaves the room. The doctor and the mother have a conversation of what do they want to do with the life of this now delivered child. This is beyond abortion. This is murder.
It's murder.
Here's what I want you to think about. And this is what everybody, I want you to get this in your mind. What if he was talking about puppies? What if he was talking about puppies? Everybody would lose their freaking minds. If they said, you know what, my dog just had a litter of puppies. I don't think we want to take care of these puppies. We're going to put them in a bag. We're going to put rocks in the bag. We're going to throw the puppies in the river. People their heads would explode.
Well, and I mean, they would be brought up on charges of animal cruelty.
Exactly. But we're talking about a human being. We're talking about a baby. And I'm ashamed that this guy even has a Southern accent. I really am. I mean, it's such a travesty. But in all seriousness, I mean, this is where we've gone to the point of lunacy, given over to a complete depraved mind. It's ridiculous.
You can't even classify this as abortion because he's talking about the delivery's been done, the baby's out. Like, what are you aborting besides the life? You're not aborting the pregnancy. You know, when I first heard this being debated it was between a woman and she was actually explaining what the bill is about.
The woman who proposed the bill,
right?
Kathy Tracy.
And I thought I couldn't tell if she was just confused, like she didn't even know really what was in the bill, or she was like, "Oh crap, we didn't really think this out and write it out very well," because she was just being very evasive. But now there's no evasiveness going on at all. She knew exactly what it was. They're talking about killing this child because it might be deformed. Like, how broad that is. Like, if you could, any kind of deformity whatsoever, oh no, I don't want it to have to deal with that, or I don't want to have to deal with that, so let's just kill it.
Well,
any baby that was be born, if they're making the decision as to, they have to agree as to whether this baby will be resuscitated, that's just murder, right? That's you're specifically letting a baby die that's already been born. There's no reason for that. That's psychosis. I mean, it really is. But it fits directly into the pro-choice mindset. I mean, we talk about choice all the time, and it's pro-choice and pro-life. Well, that's if you take those things literally and just don't mean pro-abortion and against abortion, which is really what those terms used to mean, it doesn't anymore. If choice can be made after birth, right? A few minutes after, and you're saying, okay, we're going to resuscitate this baby or not, that is actually a legitimate pro-choice viewpoint, right? If you believe, if the idea is a mother can make the choice as to whether their baby is alive or not, whose right is it to tell them after birth the baby's not alive? Or, that line is supposed to be left to the mother in the pro-choice mindset. So whether it's 9 months pregnant or 6 months pregnant or 3 months pregnant or 6 months after birth, who's to say? Well, we can all say, we all agree that baby 6 months after birth is alive. Well, it's not about if we all agree. In the pro-choice mindset, it's the mother's decision, no matter what. It's the mother's decision. And so these things will continue to happen. I mean, Peter Singer from Princeton, who's the chief of ethics there, has made this argument many times that after birth is an okay time to get rid of a child until they are able to kind of handle their own lives. We made fun of it on Wonderful World of Stu, saying your choice extends to what if they're having the terrible twos, or what if they're 16 years old and they're a pain in the ass teenager? Why can't you abort them then? It's mother's choice. That makes it a ridiculous standard. If it's just individual's choice, anything can happen to the offspring of any person. And that is the road we're walking down. We're now seeing it go beyond 9 months, and now we're just out of the womb. How long do you think it's going to take until it's 2 months or 3 months or 6 months when they've been born? It's not going to be that long.
To use the word choice is a perfect example, and it has been for a long, long time, of how when you redefine the words and use them for what you want them to say, it launders the real meaning of what's going on. You are either pro-life or you are pro-death, period. It's not about choice. You're either pro-life or you are stopping the life of a living being.
And that's why you cannot, personally, you have to draw a line in the sand. It's either a life or it's not a life. There can be no thing of convenience, or even if it's hard on the mother emotionally. You have to draw that line in the sand. That's why they say, like, the big thing is whether it's of incest or rape. Look, is it a life or not? I understand the circumstances surrounding are very difficult. The circumstances surrounding a child that may be, deformed or other issues like that. is it a life or is it not a life?
Right.
Well,
you have to draw that line, because then if you say, oh, well, yeah, we're just going to excuse it in this one little instance.
Yeah,
well, then you open it up all down the line to things like this is why Roe v. Wade is so devastating.
I also would be very interested to know, I mean, legally, the legal consequences of, let's say that this does take place in Virginia and a mother decides after she delivers the baby that she doesn't want it because she was trying to have an abortion and, you know, what have you. What if the father wants the baby after it's been born? We're just going to say it's a woman's right to choose what she does with her own body, and the woman is allowed to murder it after it's already been born, and the father has no rights?
That's exactly
legally,
what they're gonna say.
well, legally, I would love to see that play out in the courts, because, I mean, surely the father after the baby, remember, the entire argument is a woman has a right to do what she chooses with her own body. It's not in the body anymore. So why wouldn't the father have claim if the father said, I'll take the baby and raise it?
Yeah, it's a good point, and these debates are actually already happening. I read a report at Oxford. So, you know, a big-time university was in Oxford, and it was multiple professors got together, and they made the case for infant terminations all the way up until, I can't remember how long it was. It seemed like it was either up until 6 months after birth or beyond. But they were like, look, if we're going to make the case that you can terminate the pregnancy because it can't survive on its own, you know, it's got to have the mother, that you can make the same exact case 6 months from then, because if you just leave a 6-month-old baby out there, it can't survive on its own. Mm-hmm. So therefore, if we're going to use that rationale, it works all the way up.
All the way up to we can abort criminals in New York now. We can give them, instead of, we don't call it the death penalty anymore. We just call it abortion. We're just going to abort murder.
That's what's funny. These late-term pregnancies in New York, I think I brought this up before, but that's a lethal injection. So they believe in lethal injection for infants, but not for criminals. Yeah. What the heck?
I mean, but seriously, the slippery slope that you're talking about, though, I mean, it's like when you have a newborn, it's hard. Could you imagine if you allowed women the flexibility in that particular stage of their life of whether or not they wanted to take back their decision to have their baby?
Look, I got 5 kids.
You're not sleeping.
At some point in time or another, I wanted to kill all of them.
But I mean, seriously, even if it's just after birth, like what the governor just said, you're not in the frame of mind to be deciding on that right now.
Well, that was what the other lawmaker said, was basically like the emotional stress put on by the pain of giving birth is enough to request an abortion. Well, we all know there's pain in giving birth. It's a big part of that
woman
process.
is in her right mind after giving birth.
My wife told me she wanted to kill me right after she gave birth.
She probably tells you that quite often.
Yeah, that's every other day, really.
It wasn't just that one occasion.
But you know, you bring up the death penalty, and it's like, well, I mean, the only real reason that we would want to, as a society, kill someone, right, is if they're committed a crime or if they've done something that threatens you. If there's an ongoing threat, a self-defense situation. Well, no baby ever hits that goal, ever. No baby ever hits that goal, no matter what the circumstances are of the conception. It does not equal the value of the life. And that is a difficult line. It's really hard, I think, for people to conceptualize. But the baby didn't commit any crime. The baby should not be eliminated because the baby did not commit any crime in these situations.
It's a sacrifice at the altar of convenience is what it is. And it's amazing to me that man's inhumanity to man extends beyond the bounds, even reaching to the unborn and now to the born, to these innocent babies. I mean, it is the cry of the blood of the innocents when you consider this. This goes back to ancient days of heating the hands of the god Moloch and placing your babies as a sacrifice. It's a sick, sick thing, and it's amazing. You're seeing that cycle repeat itself in that same weird, murderous mindset.
One more quick thing on this, and when you come to legality, we've been talking about this, and we have something coming up on the TV show here in the next couple of weeks on it. If you guys, I mean, remember, we went through this already. When George W. Bush was president, we got a partial birth abortion ban. Mm-hmm. And that was supposed to stop all of this. This was supposed to stop these 9-month abortions. It was supposed to, I mean, it was a bipartisan bill. People agreed upon it. I mean, I know Bill Clinton vetoed it a couple of times in the 90s, but his argument was basically it's a slippery slope. That's not going to happen, but it's a slippery slope, and I don't want you guys taking any more women's rights to choose. And then we get into George W. Bush. We passed the partial birth abortion ban. It gets done. It was one of the things in his presidency you can kind of go back and say, at least he got that done. That was a good thing. Well, what they decided to do, and that it was so specifically worded that they used to partially birth the baby and kill it halfway out. What they're doing now, instead, to get around that ban, which was supposed to stop 9-month abortions completely, instead, what they're doing is they're poisoning the baby inside the womb, letting the baby die inside the womb, then it's being delivered anyway. they basically went completely around the spirit of that ban and tried to get it out on a technicality. And now the Democrats who voted for that ban, many of them, are trying to codify it in law in state after state after state. There is such a clear path to, from a I didn't like Bill Clinton as president. I thought he was terrible. But from that Democratic Party to the one we have today, it's almost unrecognizable. I mean, they have turned into basically a bunch of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortezes. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, if the American people embrace that, we are in real trouble. The sanctity of life is in real trouble. Our economy is in real trouble. We're going to turn into Mexico or Venezuela if these people get control of this. It's scary stuff.
Yeah. If you haven't noticed, now is probably the time to get on your knees and start praying, because this is really scary. Back in a minute. Before we move on, I want to thank our sponsor, Relief Factor. So I have a birthday coming up. Yeah. And I've gotten to the point where I don't really want to celebrate birthdays because I'm getting old. And along with getting old means you wake up and you're like, what did I do to my back? Oh, I just slept on it wrong. And now it's screwed up for the next 2 weeks.
You hurt yourself sleeping. That's usually a sign.
Really bad. Really bad. But so I'm sure there are a lot of you out there. I know there are, 100 million Americans who are just in constant pain all the time. If you have not tried it already, might I suggest something that's worked for us here at The Blaze? It works for me. It's worked for Jason. I know it works for Glenn, who is, way older than me. Just saying.
Couple years, yeah.
Just by a few. But so Relief Factor, it is 100% natural. and it's fish oil and just it's ingredients that tackles the inflammation in your body, which Big Pharma, it's kind of masking the what's really going on in your body. Relief Factor actually addresses the root cause of a lot of people's pain. So as it turns out, 70% of the people who buy the 3-week Quick Start Pack that Relief Factor has, they go on to keep buying it. So it's addressing their pain. It's helping them. It's helped us. It can help you. If you are in pain, go to relieffactor.com. Get that 3-week Quick Start Pack for $19.95. The odds are in your favor that you're going to be out of pain, which to me was life-changing. So I highly suggest it, relieffactor.com. Stu, I want to go to global warming.
Yes.
And how it's freezing everywhere.
Freezing everywhere, so global warming talk time. In fact, I want an argument like global warming. I want one like this because anything proves the case. If it's cold, it proves the case. If it's hot, it proves the case. Literally the only thing, if it was like 72 degrees without a cloud in the sky every day, every year, then I think they'd say global, weather weirding. It's normal. It's too normal all the time.
If there are hurricanes, it's because of global warming, and if there's a drought, it's because of global warming.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. Like on the poster of Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth was a giant hurricane. Okay, then we went through a decade plus of no hurricanes hitting the United States in any major way, and still, when the next one hit 12 years later, it was proof that global warming was causing more frequent hurricanes. It's like it's impossible to disprove this theory, and it makes
You
it
just
so
don't
great.
understand climate change,
I just don't understand it. That's right. So this is what's really great about it is they're now saying that part of the weather extremes that we're seeing now is that this cold air is pushing very lower than it would normally be on your map or southern from the Arctic. And it's hitting these areas that didn't normally get this cold. Now, of course, if you talk to anyone who's lived in these areas for a long time, they will tell you multiple stories about times it's been that cold. But that's not important because it's happening more frequently and more drastically now, as we're told. We can go back, and we've been through this stuff a million times, go back and look at their predictions from many years ago. They're all wrong. They're all off. They all put much more emphasis into, this sort of positive feedback loop that would create these terrible situations than have actually occurred, when you look at the actual numbers. But I'm fascinated just generally by this idea that you can just blame global warming for every single thing. I mean, every single thing, when there's a tornado, when there's a hurricane, when there's too much rain in some places. If you look at the New York Times story today about the cold blast, they're saying, yes, this cold blast is global warming, but it's even more than that. It's the much more mild winters that we've been feeling. At the same time, it's about the fires that are going on in Australia. And every event around the globe, which we now have the technology to really detect every one of them. I mean, that's a big part of this, This is the most famous with tornadoes, and that, for a while, Al Gore was saying that we were having much more tornadoes than we used to. But when they looked at the numbers of F3 and above, which are the ones that people actually kind of notice, right? That now we pick up all the F1s and F2s, but F3 and above, you look at there's actually been a decrease over the past 100 years. But I think that is part of this sort of argument where people are going to come in and say, well, you're a science denier, and we'll say, well, we believe that you can innovate out of these problems if they do exist, and we'll have that sort of back and forth. But if you take a step back, what are they really attacking? They're not attacking the weather. They're attacking capitalism. This is an attack on capitalism. And this is the type of moment where you should step back and realize what a glory capitalism is. Think about this for a second. If this event had happened 100 years ago, we'd be looking at 50,000 people dead. Because if all of a sudden the temperatures went down to minus 50 in these regions, no one would be, first of all, they wouldn't know they were coming. Second of all, they wouldn't have the insulation or the ways to heat as many areas as they can now. What we saw today, as of this morning, I believe 4 people had died because of this. And this is a major situation for the middle of the country right now. Two people had crashed, car crashes into snowplows. And another one had skid off the road, and one person was found in their garage, frozen for being outside too long. Again, I don't know why you're out in your garage doing anything at that point. God only knows, right? I mean, I feel for the family, but it's like if you're inside your home, right? Like he's got a garage, he's got to have a home. If he was inside his home, he's probably not dead. People driving on the road, well, people crash all the time on the road. Is that a car issue or is that a global warming issue? I guess the step back, though, is that, like, think about what would have happened in the 1800s, and did happen when these things would happen, when these things would go on. The idea that we've been able to improve society, make it so much more wealthy, make it people who are even the poorest among us have shelter and TVs, and they know this stuff's coming. They've got cell phones to be able to look at the weather, the exact weather down to the most minute detail. All of these improvements coming from capitalism, and now is the villain in the story. And it just shows how twisted and bizarre we are when it comes to talking about this. We should instead be today stepping back and saying, wow, this is a terrible thing that's happening to a lot of people. And we're going to come out of this with a much higher than 4, unfortunately, dead count. I'm sure it's going to be that bad. But it's going to be a heck of a lot less than anything we've ever seen before. When you see hurricanes crash into Haiti and it kills 100,000 people, and the same hurricane crashes into Texas and kills 2. There's a reason for that. It's not because God doesn't like Haiti and God loves us. It's because we've been able to take this country and use capitalism, which I believe is a gift just directly from God, to be able to make it into a country that can withstand terrible things from nature. And adapting is really the solution here.
You're absolutely right that the root cause of this, of the entire environment is blowing up and it's killing us all, was an attack on capitalism. And it actually started right after World War I. Some Eastern European, big thinkers went to Germany. They went to a place they established a place called the Frankfurt School. And they started writing a ton of papers that was attacking Western culture, showing how, Western culture was attacking people, and it was, Western culture and capitalism to blame for everything. One of the big things they said they want to target was capitalism and Western culture is an assault on women. Do we hear that today? Capitalism in Western society is an assault on the LGBT people. Capitalism in Western society was an assault and attack on the environment. They wanted to show everything was under siege about capitalism. That way they could change the mindset and eventually overthrow capitalism. This whole climate change started in Germany from the Frankfurt School, a bunch of socialists and communists that wanted to basically just attack our Western culture. That's where it started.
And at the World Economic Conference, they are going to fly in 1,500 private jets. So, they're going to discuss the climate, but that's capitalism.
All right, back in a minute.
They always want to be on a war footing. When you're on a war footing, you can get anything accomplished.
That's right.
I hear there's something really, really good on TV tonight, Chad.
Yes,
Do you know
the
about
very
this?
first episode, the premiere, the debut of Humor Me with Chad Prather.
wow.
Blaze
Right.
TV, 8:30
I know that
tonight.
guy.
You know that guy?
I know that
In
guy.
the flesh. No, my guys, Sean Foster, Jason Hernandez, Party Foul, Steve Powell. We've worked hard on this thing to put it together, and it's been a fun idea. And so I hope everybody will subscribe and check it out and watch it. I think they're going to enjoy it. It's different. It really is very different from anything else that's on Blaze TV.
All right, blazetv.com, and we'll see you guys in overtime now.